Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our program. We are recognizing Latinos. This is Latino Heritage Month, Latina Heritage Month 2017. And one of our guests today is a wonderful writer, and I've had the chance to talk to her several times and interview her. Caridad Scordato. She comes from Cuba. She came as a very young person, successful writer, and a lot of it, her genre is romance. But it's more than that. It's just, I'm giving you very basic ideas. But she's coming in from New York City, so thank you very much for being with us, Caridad.
Thank you so much, Armando, for having me.
Now, it's just a tiny little background. On top of being a world-renowned writer, you are also an attorney. So people may not know that about you as background. So what a contrast. And then being in New York, oh man, that's really great. That's really fantastic. But let's get to you. When did you become a writer?
I wrote my first book in the 5th grade. We had a teacher who assigned a class project, and the project was that we had to turn in a 20-page typed book close to the end of the year so that it could be put in a class lending library. It was a pass-fail kind of thing. You weren't graded, but you had to do it, and you could do it on any topic that you wanted to. It could have been a bio or anything, and I went home and grabbed me. I'd always been an avid reader. I would read anything I could get my hands on, and the next thing I knew, I was writing a romance. And my poor mom, like a couple of weeks before the end of the semester, had to help me type this. And, when she finished, we had a 120-page typed book. It was like, I couldn't believe it. I said, I actually had a book that I was putting up on the shelves for people to read. And just from that point on, I knew that I wanted to be a writer and that this was something that I was going to find time for. But being the daughter of, Cuban immigrants of first generation here, they were, really big on, you have to have a profession, you women have to be able to stand on your own. And I don't think they ever thought that writing was going to be the kind of profession that I could rely on. And so, it was a lot of push and everything. And I eventually, I went to college. I ended up going to law school and becoming an attorney, but the entire time I kept on writing. Shortly after my daughter was born, I decided that I needed to show her that it was possible to follow your dreams and have more than one dream. I decided to sit down and get to work on those books that I'd always had in my brain. And it took me like 2 or 3 years before I actually had something that I could, start sending out and showing to people. And then I think it took about 8 or 9 years after that before I sold my first book.
Now, bring me back to a little bit of this point. When did you write this first book? In 4th grade, I think you said?
Fifth grade.
Fifth grade.
5th grade.
Now yeah. Doing a little bit of math here, you're about 10, 11 years old, somewhere in there. And so a 10-year-old writing a book about romance?
Yeah, it's funny. We had a lot of readers in my family. My mom and my grandma in particular, mi abuelita, they read and they read. My mom would read books like by Taylor Caldwell and Leon Uris. My grandmother, everything she could get her hands on. A lot of, and I'm sure the Spanish readers are familiar with this, the Corintellado, the little kind of graphic novel. And of course, they were romances. So I would look at them, at the pictures and everything else. So it was kind of natural just to fall into it because that's really what the women in my household were reading at the time. And there really wasn't anything like young adult books back there. You kind of jump from, reading and Jane to, all kinds of things that were well beyond, I guess, what I could read. I was a very precocious reader. And so, yeah, it just was kind of natural. That's what I enjoyed in a story.
How many books have you written?
With novels and novellas, I've written over 50, and I've sold about 1 million books worldwide.
Wow. How does that feel?
It feels very exciting. I still pinch myself when I think about it. It was a milestone I reached last year, and it was very, very exciting to see that after so many years of working towards being published.
And do you travel around the world as a writer, or most of it you stay here in the United States?
Most of it I stay here in the United States. I have gone overseas for some writing things, but usually it's in the US. I do more of my foreign travel for the job, actually, because what I do during the day when I'm not writing is I'm an intellectual property attorney. And so I help all kinds of companies protect their brands around the world. And that sometimes necessitates me going to other countries for cases or to meet other attorneys and things like that.
I think I asked you right before we did the show, would you consider retiring from your attorney work and just dedicate all your time just simply to be writing?
Yeah, and since this is live, I'll have to take the Fifth Amendment on that.
That's a good one. Oh, yeah. The attorney side is behind you on that. How
Yeah.
were you able to balance two huge careers? Huge careers.
I'm very regimented. I actually start ride in and to my job, which is a good 45-minute, each way. And then on the weekends, I'll spend usually Saturday and Sunday mornings a good 3 or 4 hours writing. And as need be, if there's work that needs to be done, if I have a big deadline or something like that, I'll work at night, although I usually don't like to, because I find that I'm just too tired at that point. But I will do things like set up my blog for the next day. I usually try to blog every day, or work on features or other things for my readers and friends.
Where can our viewers get information about you, your current work, and your upcoming work?
Right. Well, my website is caridad.com, caridad.com. It's caridad.com. And there you'll find my bio, my book lists, the blog that I was mentioning, as well as links to all my different social media sites and the newsletter signups that you can get information about releases and contests and other kinds of things that I'm doing.
You come out to Los Angeles often?
Not so much Los Angeles, but San Diego a lot. A lot of conferences are held there. Yeah. Every now and then. I know there was just a huge book festival in Los Angeles, and one of these days I'll get to that.
Oh, definitely. The LA Times Book Festival.
Yes, yes.
Please, I love to see you there. That's definitely should be there as well. I want to take a moment to acknowledge and thank Dr. Thelma Reina. She's the one who's advising me that, who shall we get? And she immediately said, oh, you got to get her. You got to get Caridad. So I'm really thankful to her as well.
Yeah, me too. Thelma's just an absolutely fantastic lady, and she's done some marvelous books on Latina writers and other themes that would be pertinent to us.
Absolutely. Now, where do you get your inspirations to write?
A lot of people ask that, and I have to say that I just all of a sudden get a story in my head. I was always an avid reader, and even before that, I remember going to sleep with just these ideas going in my head, or even like from reading the Sunday cartoons. I remember as a kid, I would read them in Spanish. Actually, I never read them in English. And one of them was Príncipe Valiente, which I don't even know if it's in the newspapers anymore. And I remember going to bed, with ideas of Prince Valiant and fighting the different battles and the princess. And of course, in my books, the princess saved Prince Valiant. I've always been a feminist, I guess. So they come from all kinds of different things, but a lot of times it's just a character who gets stuck in my head, who's just kind of saying, hello, I want you to tell my story. Actually get a lot of inspiration from what's in the news. They'll take snippets of stories that seem interesting and use those. And I think every writer has different ways that they get inspiration for the stories that they write. The series that I have coming up starting in October is actually a contemporary romance series that's set all along the Jersey Shore. Even though I grew up for the most part on Long Island, I have been living in Jersey longer than I lived in New York, and I really have fallen in love with the Jersey Shore. And I thought, what a better way to honor that interest than by, doing a series of stories that would kind of give people a different view of the place that I love so much.
Okay. We lost your image. I think we can still hear you, hopefully. There was a connection issue. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I have one more question for you, and the idea is, and even if we can just hear you orally, the idea is, people think of romance writers as nothing more than just male and female holding hands and all this process of romance per se. But I understand it isn't that simple. It's far more broader than that. We can see you now, so you're back online. So, could you sort of enlighten me how it's not really, when they say romance, it's not just that male and female relationship, it's much broader than that?
Well, I mean, I think the issue is that even in that male and female relationship, just as in life, it's way more complicated than I like you, I lust after you, and are we going to get together? I'll give you for example, in my very first book, Now and Always, which was actually part of the nation's first Latino romance line. The hero and heroine were both Cuban, but the hero was an old-time Cuban that came here in the 60s, and the heroine was a Marielita. And those who are familiar with Miami and the times and know that, there's kind of been an inherent tension between them, and I wanted to bring that out. I wanted to bring out the fact that, even city or even, a certain group, that there are even biases and discrimination within people, that it's not necessarily black and white or Latino and white. It happens even in other groups. It unfortunately seems to be part of human nature in some respects. But I also wanted to show that with understanding and patience and love, that those kinds of problems can be overcome. In some of the newer books, for example, the one I'm working on now, the hero and heroine the heroine is facing problems in trying to salvage her family business, which is a retail establishment. And I've based a lot of what's going on with her and her retail stores on what's actually happening in today's economy. When you look around, you see JCPenney, Macy's, Sears, you see all these long-time powerful brands are closing lots and lots of brick and mortar stores, as online kind of decimates the physical presence. And so, there's a lot of things in romances besides the romance, and things which add conflict to what's happening. So, it's not just, that's the major theme, but there's a lot about how people deal with their everyday lives, or, again, pertinent subjects that people would be interested in that affect how the relationship develops. And I think that's why there can be so many different romances, because, the boy meets girl might be the basis for the story, but there's millions of ways you could tell that story. The same way that you could, let's say, a science fiction story, or even a mystery. We know that the mystery is a whodunit, but they all bring different aspects of life and things to that story. And it's the same thing with romances.
I see. As we're getting close to ending the show, I want to make sure, that I ask you again, please, can you give me the website where our viewers can go to and find more information and find updates on what you're doing?
Sure. Well, you can look for me my name is Caridad Pinheiro. That's my writing name. It's Pineiro. And my website is www.caridad.com. Okay,
so when we're going to see one of your books into a movie?
I hope. I can't tell you. I must have at least 7 or 8 projects that people have asked to see over the years. And I keep on hoping it'll happen one day.
Okay, well, you keep me tabs on that one, because I think
I will, believe me.
And
I will.
In closing statements, your 2-3 minutes, what do you think?
I think, I think we're very lucky to be living at a time when there is these, especially for women writers to explore as women is and the goals that we want to achieve, and also diverse women of various ethnicities and races. I think it's really a great time to do that. There's a lot of technological advances that help with that in terms of things like the wealth of self-publishing. In some ways, it also can be harder, but the point is there's opportunities for people if you're willing to do it. One of the things my mom always said to me is that anything is possible if you work hard enough, and I've never stopped believing that. And that's what I like to leave people with, is that anything is possible if you want it bad enough.
Caridad, thank you for taking time from your writing and attorney time and traveling and God knows what else you have to do. And I remember that crazy trip leaving New York City to go out into Long Island. I did that once. That was a story unto itself. And you do it every day.
Yeah.
So be safe always.
Do it every day.
I know that is quite an amazing aspect. Thank you very much for being on the show. And please, continue your success. Thank you for sharing how others can follow track. And like you said, what I walk away from this show is the idea that it's a pen and pencil world still. Yes, we can do it on the computer, but it's still a creative process. We all have ideas. And if we all start taking that journey, as hard, you mentioned, it is hard, but take that journey to begin to present your stories, never know where it's going to go.
Anything is possible. You never know what adventure is waiting around the corner, Armando. I truly believe that.
Absolutely. And it's an adventure today, just having the show, not knowing where that was going to go to a great extent, and seeing, sharing ideas. Caridad, thank you very much for being on the program. I wish you continued success. And whenever your new projects come up, let me know as well. And we're going to stay here crossing our fingers that you also move into a movie.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay, igualmente. Adios. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Armando F. Sanchez. Thank you for being on our program. This is part of the series of Latina Heritage Month, September and October 2017. We've had the pleasure of having some wonderful people who are adding to the cultural, literary, artistic backgrounds of our community. They all have distinct views. They all have, a different perspective. But if you sort of take it all together, you will realize that we're all adding that little grain of salt, a little grain of dirt, that little grain of sand, a little grain of something that we're all putting together to make this a better country. Thank you for being on our program. You can contact me at lsacnational@hotmail.com. Again, I'm Armando F. Sanchez, CEO, Armando F. Sanchez Productions. Adios.